I'm over here at the table where I'm building that carbon fiber mold for the intake on the haul truck, or the intake for an 8.3 Cummins. I'm having issues with this, so let this just be the introduction to it. I'm going to play the videos that were shot. Some of them were shot quite a while ago. It's been a while since I posted a video on the carbon fiber mold build. Well, the carbon fiber intake build, but the process is the mold right now. Again, I'm having issues with it, so let me play insert the videos that I had shot previously, and then I'm gonna kind of bring you back for a recap on the thing. So here we go. Okay, over here at the carbon fiber mold, one of the things I want to show you is, as you know, that I made this mold out of this foam material. Now, something that I just kind of noticed, it kind of presented itself before, but I didn't really get what was going on. I told you about the spot glazing or spot putty that you use. Well, I used it up in here, and as you can see, there's a big divot in there where I put it on. Now, I think something in this putty or glaze is actually deteriorating that foam or eating into that foam like a chemical type of reaction. I'm not really sure, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and put some primer on this thing. See if I'm going to get a reaction with the foam and the primer, let's not call it lacquer. It's I think it's an enamel type primer, but let me see if I'm going to get a reaction with the foam and the primer. I'll bring you back and show it to you. One of the things that I should have said before I ended that clip was this spot putty can be used over primer. If you sand it down, you can put it over primer. So if I get no reaction with the primer and the foam, what I'll do is put the spot putty, you know, sand down the primer, put the spot putty over the primer, and see if I'm going to get a reaction like I did there. I'm not talking about the crack. The crack is evident from it. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Huh. Yeah, let me see what's going on here. That could have been two layers, a very thin layer of foam. Where I tapered it down, I had layered the foam. I probably, in hindsight, should have made this mold out of a block of foam material instead of trying to layer it together, because where it's tapered down and becomes thin, there could be a hollow spot under it, and I think that's what's going on there. Let me, instead of me priming this, let me fix this. This thing has got to be fixed to begin with, so let me get in there, fix that out. Probably what I'm going to do is dig this out and go back in and put body filler in there. But I'll bring you back and let you know what I did. What I had done is pick that stuff out of there and then puncture some holes in there so that that filler would get down in there. I think that contact cement had created a glaze over it. I think the fact that it was so thin in that material because of the layering effect and because of the glaze created by that contact cement, that it didn't stick to it, created a hollow spot in there. So What I did is dug it out, poked some holes in it so that the body filler would actually get down in there and bond to it. What I'll do is that starts to get hard, I will take that rasp and clean it off or contour it a little bit before the final sanding, just so that there won't be so much sanding in that one area. The rasp works good as a kind of a roughing tool. What I'll do is I'll let that harden before I sand it. If you use that rasp on there, it really works good with body filler to rough it out. You got to do it though kind of before it hardens permanently. I mean, the rasp will still work after it gets hard, permanent hard. It's just harder to control it or to get it to scrape down. But if you get it at that point, kind of when it's hard, but just before it really sets up, it's very easy to work with this rasp and form body filler. I'm over here at the workbench where I'm making that carbon fiber mold. I haven't been working on this for a while. I just came back on it today, was sanding a little bit and got these tear outs again where the tapered layers of that foam seem to tear out. There are hollow spots that were created by using that contact cement. What I'd need to do is, if I was to ever do this again, I would have to get a block of foam and create that mold out of one block. I'm not saying that it can't be done layering stuff together and tapering it down like that. It just doesn't look to me like it can be done with using contact cement to layer them together. It creates voids in it, and when you taper it out, those voids break away. That's where it gets real narrow. So what I'm going to do, come back in here, I'm going to fill these things in, and then what I'm going to try and do is prime this thing so that I can get a layer of primer on it, and then fill any other imperfections after the layer of primer by using the spot glazing putty. It seems if I put that spot glazing putty directly on the foam, when it heats up, it creates pockets in the foam. Where it heats up, it shrinks the foam and creates divots. So I fill in one divot and create another one in the process of filling it in. So what my thought is, if I can get a layer of primer on top of it, and then put that glazing putty over the top of the primer, I should be able to avoid that problem. But I'll let you know how I make out with it back on this project again, and hopefully videos to come. Okay, so in conclusion, let me just kind of recap and finish part 4 off here. Let's go with the first thing, why I'm using foam. I could have built this out of something else, but because of the shape of it, I need the foam to be used so that I can dig the mold out after I form the carbon fiber part. Because of the shape of it, the mold has to be dug out, and if you use something solid like wood, if I had formed this out of wood, I wouldn't have been able to get it out. I wouldn't be able to get the mold, the wooden mold, out of the carbon fiber part. Now, What the other thing that could have been done was it could have been made in two pieces and like flanged together, creating a flange on it. But I thought this, when I went into this, I thought this would be a lot simpler to do than trying to create a flange piece that and form the carbon fiber in two different separate pieces and then just bolt it together or screw it together. Maybe in hindsight that would have worked easier than this, because I'm having so many issues with this. One of the other issues that I had is, if you guys remember, when I got them voids in the foam originally from using the contact cement, I went out and bought some of that great stuff and kind of tried to fill it in. Well, that stuff doesn't sand out well, and it creates voids in there. So you can see where there's some voids in the material where that great stuff was used. So that was another mistake. And when we're talking about mistakes, let's just dive into that a little bit. One of the things that I do, one of the reasons that I videotape these things and post them on the internet, is so that you guys can see how I did it, and in this case, see the mistakes that I made, so that you wouldn't make the same mistakes if you happen to be building this. It's very apparent that I'm not an expert in this, and I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants here, and you're seeing the mistakes that I make. So hopefully somebody can watch this video, if they plan on doing something like this, and watch this video and not make the same mistakes. So let's one of the things that I said in the last clip is that I thought that the spot putty heated up and was doing it. I don't think it's a heat, because actually the body filler heats up when it as it dries too. I think the spot putty is more of a chemical reaction with the foam. And I've touched on why I'm using the foam. The foam is because it has to be dug out of the mold. So, you know, I'm having a lot of issues with this. Again, if I was to redo this, I would probably make it out of a single block of foam. If I had to build a mold where I had to dig the thing out, where the mold encapsulate, or the carbon fiber encapsulated the mold, and the mold has to be dug out of the carbon fiber to get the part, I would use a solid block of foam. But I've got a lot of time invested in this, and I'm not going to give up on it. I'm going to see it through. If I have to keep going, keep using body filler to fill in instead of spot putty. As you can see, you see it from the gray on the thing that I did prime it, and I found a lot of imperfections. You always, when you paint or prime something, you always find imperfections in it. Over what you see with your naked eye or what you can feel, it's hard to feel those voids in there with your fingers, but when I primed it, I noticed that I got a lot of voids down in here that I didn't see, where I had been sanding on the foam with a heavier grit paper, and it kind of created rough spots in it. But again, I've got a lot of time invested in this, and I'm going to see it through to the end. But if I was to do it again, I would build it out of a solid block of foam. You know, if you're building other parts, you can do different type things. You know, like I've seen a video on YouTube where somebody built a hood out of carbon fiber, and they made a mold out of fiberglass. Took a hood and made the mold out of fiberglass, and then vacuum bagged the thing, and it turned out really nice. But in this case, I couldn't do it. But anyways, I'll bring you back as I progress on it with hopefully quicker updates. You know, this isn't one last thought on this before I end this part of it, is that this thing isn't a huge priority. I've got other things that I'm doing on the truck or in the shop that take precedence over this mold build, and getting this part on. This part can be put on part of the last part of the project before I drive it out the door, but so I've got time on this, so that's kind of why it gets put off. But anyways, I'll bring you back.